The At Home Show.
Ah, yes. Leaves. All kinds of leaves. Oaks, maples, dogwoods. Beautiful colors. Red, orange, yellow. But not so fun. A constant shower of leaves. As if I don't have anything else to do but constantly mow up and mulch up leaves in my yard. So, what do you do? It's enough to make you kind of melancholy. I guess I better invite over the whole family, cook a giant turkey and 17 different sides. That might be enough to distract me. Live from the Green Room Studios, from the spacious property of Bates Nursery and Garden Center, 3810 Whites Creek Pike, it's the At Home Show with Josh Cary and David Bates.
Okay. Settle down back there. Settle down. It's all good. It's Saturday morning. It's time to do the show. Good morning, David Bates. He's alive and in studio.
Making a rare appearance on the program.
All righty, folks, it's Saturday morning. It means it's time to talk gardening, home improvement. You can reach out, 615-499-6690. It's been 2 weeks since we had a David Bates weather report. So, David, take it on away.
Well, and we've got a pretty nice one for you here. It's, of course, it is. In case you haven't noticed, it's cooled down quite a lot. And today will be quite a reminder of that. Only 49 degrees for the high temperature today. And but sunny conditions. And as you begin to look at the forecast on a day-to-day basis, the freezing mark becomes a threshold that is being broken repeatedly now. Whether we were having some over the last couple of weeks, we've had some frost and freeze warnings. Those go away after you have the first one in the fall because, well, they've already gotten zapped at that point. So 49 for the high today, 32 for the overnight low, 58 going to warm up a bit tomorrow, 29 on Sunday evening, 56 Monday, 72 on Tuesday. So still got some warmth left in the atmosphere. 69 Wednesday, 54, 58 cooling down by the end of the weekend. Currently it's 33 degrees here at Bates Nursery. Live from the Green Room, the At Home Show.
Yes, sir, it is. Now,
Welcome
David,
aboard.
would you like to go around the room and introduce the Casto characters that are inside the studio this morning?
I've been gone so long, I hope I remember who everybody is. Yeah, well, by the way, that guy right there is Josh Cary, by the way. Michael Stevenson over there. We got Austin Lowen back there in the back. Good morning, Austin.
Morning.
We've got Caroline Gant, also known as Cary. Good morning to you, Cary. And, of course,
on the Tyler Cam.
Tyler Blankenship. The show does not happen without him. There he is.
Good morning, everyone.
Got his spot on the wall. So we
I splattered like a cheap poster in New York City.
And we are actually an interactive program.
Yes, we are.
So you can pick up the phone right at this moment. Even if this is Tuesday when you're watching this, you can pick it up right now, 615-499-6690. Now, when you do that, you can either call and leave a voice message and say, here's what I'm curious about, or you can text us. Either way will work. We also can be reached through our Facebook page.
Yes.
The At Home Show with Josh Cary and David Bates Facebook page, our Instagram pages, and Caroline is the administrator of that account. And so check us out over there. And I'm just curious, since I have been
away,
indisposed, trying to get repaired. Do we have questions in the queue, by the way?
Yes, we do. We have 4 this morning.
All right, very good. And and we did have a special request from the from Terry, who is in our checkout area this morning, and she wanted to talk about Japanese lady beetles.
Really?
Yes.
Japanese.
Is there a difference between
the
Japanese
Asiatic
lady beetles and just Japanese beetles?
They actually do look a little bit different. They have different
colors and spots.
And the big difference is the Asiatic ones tend to hang around inside, and that's where they manifest themselves. And that's where people this time of year begin to have problems with those. And if you start stomping them, well, boy, you've got a stinky mess on your hands.
Slippery, slimy.
They don't smell all that good. So a lot of people are have a measure of distress in their life because they don't know what to do about it. And I'm sure there are ways you could spray them and be rid of them. Some of it would, sometimes they frequently will be just living like in a wall or whatever, and then the eggs start hatching, and then all of a sudden you notice one day and a million the next. So we have a pretty tried and true method here.
Shop vac.
So if you don't have a shop vac and you have those in your home,
you can use a Mila. If you had a Mila, you could use a Mila.
Yeah, you'll probably fill a little bag.
A Kirby would do it real well too.
Maybe a Hoover if you want to go, old school.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. But that works as well as anything that's going on. Now, prevention of those is, and this brings up another thing that Tyler wanted to talk about, with these cold and chilly temperatures that we're experiencing, looking around the house for places that those little critters might be coming in will also help with your energy efficiency and loss of heating and or cooling next year, because it probably was happening all summer long, and they had one just kind of sneak in there and then just set up a recon base, and then they went to the forward base, and then they dropped in all the they brought in the engineers and brought in built the bridges across the thresholds and that kind of thing. You're shaking your head like you agree with me, David.
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep up at this point.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
Sophisticated beetles.
yes, they are. Well, I mean,
I didn't really know they thought that much about it. I just figured they crawled under a opening and laid eggs.
They're really organized if you think about it. But weather stripping around your windows and doors, making sure that the door is actually hitting the weather stripping, making sure your windows are down. Windows. Is that a plural or a? No,
I think that is a pronunciation variation.
Okay, but
here's a question for you, Josh.
Okay,
so I've got cats at the house.
Okay,
and if we leave them outside too long, like not because it's cold, they just get tired of being on the porch.
They're cats.
They don't hear them.
Yeah.
They scratch at the weather stripping at the bottom of the door. Is there a way to cut that out and patch it, or do you have to redo the whole thing?
Well, the weather stripping on a door, in most cases these days, is a very easy fix. You just get a hold of it in the middle, on the bottom, at the end. You pull it out, and it's usually inside a groove that is in there, and you just press a new piece in if you're going to do it.
So you can patch it.
You replace the whole piece.
Replace the whole piece, okay.
Well, and if this is going to be a continuing problem with the kitties, I would have first and foremost have a very serious meeting with the cat to discuss the issue.
I just tear their claws out, but that's just me.
Okay, that's
not really. They claw them.
Yeah, that's kind of cruel to an outdoor cat.
But
they're not outdoors.
But if you want to try to take a pair of scissors and cut that weather stripping and then put it just in a piece and reserve the rest of the either 8-foot or 80-inch piece that you've got, you can do it, but really it's a whole lot easier just to pull the whole thing out.
That's what I was asking. What's the easiest way to do it?
Well, the process is going to be the same, Michael. Either way you go with it. I mean, you're going to.
The main thing is once you get it out at the bottom, if there's any dirt in it, it's going to be at the bottom. You got to get it clean. Otherwise, the little tab won't fit in.
Little fuzz pad tabs that are in the corners. If you look down there, and you can see that there's about a 2-inch square residue that's on that door jamb, usually means that there was a pad, that it was a felt pad that helps to block the air too. Well, you know what the technical term for those is, David Bates?
Felt pad?
Fuzzy pads.
Oh.
Fuzzy pads. Okay. There are different types of fuzzy pads, but if you're going to have a gap, it's usually at one of those corners, and usually on the operating side of the door. So, but lock your windows, push them all the way down, and just because it's closed doesn't mean that it is completely engaged. And make sure if you have the casement type windows, the ones that crank out, or awnings, make sure that you pull the little lever lock down so it pulls up tight against the weather stripping and everything, and it'll help you out a bunch. Am I boring you, dear?
Not at all.
Okay.
No, one of these days we're gonna have FLIR goggles, that are actually affordable, that we could just put on and look for all the leaks in our home. I know you can rent FLIR cameras from Home Depot right now.
Well, there are a lot of those little sensors.
They're expensive.
There are a lot of those little handheld sensors that are temperature sensors that are relatively inexpensive.
Oh, like laser thermometers?
Yeah.
That'll work.
Basically the same thing. If anybody still has a cigarette lighter or a candle that you could light as you're walking through, if you walk by a set of windows or a door and you feel that it's colder there, one of the old tricks we used to do was just take a lighter and just walk around the perimeter, and then you could see where the actual air infiltration is going in or out. It's a neat little tip, and then you start back with the process of either trying to patch, replace, or find parts.
So the lighter is affected by the air that's coming into the home. Is that how it works?
I mean, again, you're going to see a little bit of whether it's going to be negative pressure or positive pressure. If it's blowing in, you know that it's what's going on. A lot of times, if you see it going the other direction, it's just, again, the sign of a vacancy of the space there that's not sealed totally and completely.
Can you do that in the middle of the room or towards
no.
an
You want to go towards the door or the window.
All you could in the middle of the room. All you proves that there's enough oxygen to support a flame.
All right. Well, I mean, could be a powerful current one day.
You don't want to use, don't use something that's really, it's good to be able to have it go out real quickly too, because if you're holding it in the wrong direction, you have burned a finger here or there because the wind will blow across it. But truly making sure to turn that lock to where it pulls those components together. Pull the lever down to make sure that it pulls and engages.
Well,
push the door completely closed. Turn the deadbolt. Turn the lever lock, and that
jiggle the handle. Check the.
Well, you can tell when it's cold out there. The weather stripping on the bottom. It's a wear spot. They're not quite as easy to change out in most cases, but it usually involves taking the door down to replace that little sweep that's on the bottom. But
speaking of sweeps, what do you think about the door gap socks?
They're
the little things.
I use them in my house.
Yeah.
I sure do.
They help a lot.
A rolled up towel, they work as good. But the socks are great. The little door bottoms. I mean, there are a lot of these areas in your home that are unused. Even David, you probably do this at your house. You'll have a zone set up, and you're going to have the air off in certain rooms of the home. And
we have our home is an old home,
yes,
and it was. Somewhere along the eons back, it got duplexed, and then before we bought it 15 or so years ago, it got deduplexed. But so we have these two systems that support the home. The only thing is that they were set up based on how that the house was duplexed. So we redid them so that there's essentially is a forward servicing unit and one that services the back of the house.
Right.
So
you turn them on and off.
We just I don't mess with them.
Okay.
It's above my pay grade. I just usually just leave it alone.
You're either cold or you're warm, and you suffer with it depending upon what's going on.
It's not really it's above my pay grade to be observing the temperature.
I see.
I'm there to be, I'm usually okay with it.
Bill Hayes is watching us on the At Home Show page.
And a gracious good morning to you, Bill. Well, hope you're having a wonderful day.
He says, believe me, the stink bug taste exactly like they smell. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And you do see a lot of those this time of year as well.
And candies and advent calendars.
They just kind of show up everywhere.
Okay.
615-499-6690. Let's go ahead and get Cary and Austin engaged here and see what is people are thinking about this
I think they're both married already, though.
Good one.
Not to each other, just to engaged in the conversation.
Okay.
Bring us in. Okay, so I'm assuming that means you're ready for your first question of the morning.
Okay.
This comes from Lily Schultz. She asks, is it too late to plant garlic?
No.
Yeah.
There's your answer.
It's 8:14. It's not that late.
No, you do, and there's really not a late time to plant garlic. Honestly, I worked at a organic vegetable farm when I was in college, and I remember planting garlic once in the snow. I was like, 2 or 3 inches of snow, and I'm out there planting garlic. So it's another cool season bulb that you can plant and just get in the ground. You can separate every single one of those little garlic cloves. You get the whole bulb, and you can separate those little garlic cloves individually and get a lot more garlic out of that. And and it's getting to the time to get them in the ground, and they'll come up in the spring and
You leave the
A lot
paper
of
on?
people-
Oh, they leave the skin on? You don't do any kind of a cleaning on it?
You can if you want, if you
Okay.
really want to, but you don't have to at all.
Okay.
That's just going to sit there.
A lot of people don't think about going to the grocery store and buying garlic to plant in the ground, but you actually could.
You literally can. Yeah, I've done that before. Yeah, you get a whole bulb and separate the cloves off of it. So good question, and it's time to get the garlic going.
There's a lot of activities that are cold weather centric, and a lot of people, I think the natural tendency is to kind of go inside and hibernate. But truth be, there are a great many things that this time of year cause, and we'll discuss more of those as we go through the show there. So,
And not just garlic, but tons of bulbs you want to get planted this time of year so they can kind of lay dormant over the winter and then emerge in the spring and bloom and do everything we want them to do. So it's bulb planting season.
yep.
Perfect. Well, you actually answered 2 questions because our second question was, is it too late to plant tulip or daffodil bulbs?
No, negative.
So perfect time.
Yeah, and generally speaking, if they are bulbs that have not been pre-chilled, we can talk about that a little bit, but you generally want to get them planted by the end of the year. And the magic to that is that the bulbs need a number of weeks. They need like 14 weeks of dormancy to really be able to build up enough energy to bloom properly. So if you don't get it done by the end of the year, you just start looking at the calendar and you go, oh, well, there's really not enough time. Now, what will happen? It doesn't mean they won't bloom if you go later with them on pre-chilled bulbs, but they will bloom less and they'll bloom later. So there's just that to think about. And what I mean by pre-chilled or pre-cool bulbs is that bulbs from premium providers, and that would be a place like us, we sell pre-chilled bulbs, and what that does is that means you could plant them even into January, and they're still going to give you really good performance. They could be delayed slightly, but they're basically going to bloom when they would have, and as prolifically. And literally what has been done is that dormancy has been built in. Some weeks of dormancy have been built in on the front end, so that gives you a little bit better cushion as far as how you do those. And typically you don't see those on those big bags of assorted bulbs that are just, they're just bulbs.
The ones from the mini market?
The ones you see everywhere this time of year. So.
Oh, okay. All righty. Well, we had a question came in this week on directly to the Facebook page as well, Cary. And this is from a former producer of the At Home Show. The Red Stallion himself, David Bates.
Oh, right.
The Red Stallion.
The prolific
Jonathan Melcher.
Yeah. How many children do they have
Like
now?
50, something like that.
A bunch.
Now, they have, let's see, it's the Red Stallion, the Pink Pony. We've got Spud and Sprout, and I think there's still one that is in the oven, as it were.
I think so.
Okay, so I don't know what are we gonna name the third baby.
Don't know. We got some time to think about it though.
Okay.
So what was the question?
Well, hey, we are closing on a bigger house on Monday, which would be a day after tomorrow, and it only has one tree. It's a huge magnolia, but very close to the house and has to come down. The pony and I will have 4.5 acres and would like to plant some trees. I want a cherry tree. She wants an apple, and I told her that she would need to plant a yellow apple tree as well. What are some good ideas for shade trees that don't have nuts and the roots don't run on the ground? I have heard maples are good, but the roots run across the top of the ground, and he knew that we would know an answer. So what do we think?
Well, roots grow just like the top grows.
Yes.
Not necessarily in a reciprocating fashion, but as a general rule, maple trees do have roots that tend to surface. And Austin, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so you're right. For the most part, roots are going to mimic the top of the canopy. So however far wide that the canopy is, typically the roots are going to mimic that down below. And you're right, maple trees certainly stick on top of the dirt. Now, there's a number of them that don't. I noticed you said you didn't want nuts, so I'm assuming we're going to avoid oak trees.
Yep.
But we have a number of trees here on the lot right now, and you mentioned cherries. That's a good one. You mentioned apples. Fine choice. Like you mentioned, you do need at least 2 or 3 different varieties out there to help you get some quality fruit. But tulip poplar comes to mind. That's our state tree.
They're up in Metropolis, Illinois. So,
Okay.
I mean, he may be able to find some things around there as well.
Illinois is okay. I mean, Tulip Poplar lives in Illinois just fine, I know.
Okay.
It's
Not the state tree in Illinois, but
no, it is our state tree. And Kentucky's and Indiana's, I believe, is the state tree.
wow.
But they grow super fast, like amazingly fast. So if you can buy a small one and still get something big within the first couple of seasons, and provides very good shade. It'll get, with a great full sun environment, it'll get 60, 70 feet tall, and 30, 40 feet wide. So that would be a good one for you to use. And honestly, there's a number of trees that you can use for that type of scenario. A wide open yard, leaves yourself room for almost anything.
Well, in his the use of the magnolia, it just sounds like that was probably a good choice for where it was. It just got a lot bigger than what it was that he did. In that corner of the house, it may be that he could take some of that back and start and just keep it trimmed up. I mean, he's got 4.5 acres. He's going to have to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I recommend to everybody, before you decide to just remove something, think about pruning it first. There's a lot of things that can be pruned. Established trees and shrubs that have been in for a long time can almost take an extensive, severe prune, and they're still going to come back without a problem. And magnolia is no different. I actually observed this last season. My buddy at Clanton's Lawn Care, who shops with us, we appreciate that. He's been my buddy since kindergarten. He asked me last year if he could prune a magnolia that was way too close to a home, and I told him to go ahead and do it, and he did it very early spring before it wanted to leaf out. He had really hacked it. I mean, like, took the head out, almost cut it in half.
Wow.
And I noticed it re-leafed out in the spring just fine. So I've seen it done.
Timing.
Seriously, the timing is crucial. So right before it wants to flush in the spring, we gave it that prune, and I saw a great response out of it. So you'll be amazed, though, after you do that, how much growth you get after you do it. So I saw an amazing amount of growth after he had cut that. So it almost kind of rejuvenates plants a little bit sometimes to do that. So before you remove, think about pruning it first.
Okay.
Hey,
I'm sorry.
why don't we segue here for just a moment? You see, I've got up on the screen here a picture of
Autumn Blaze.
autumn blaze maple that is in my front yard, and it's a good time for us to talk about. A lot of people thinking about planting trees. Obviously, the leaves have really started coming down the last couple of days, and this tree in my yard no longer looks like this. Matter of fact, it only has a few leaves left on it now, but this is about midpoint of the leaf drop. The color was absolutely incredible. This tree was actually a replacement tree along about where the cursor is, right about here. There was a 120-year-old sugar maple that we nursed for a number of years, and we did extend its life, but ultimately, it was going to come down, and we decided we wanted it to come down on our terms.
You went for the bolting route. You had cabling, all kinds of stuff.
We had done a great number of things and done injectable fungicides. Anyway, you figure when you lose a tree like that, you're never going to have something that's truly going to replace it. 3 years ago, I planted this maple in my yard, and I understand how to do it properly.
Really?
And this was a 15-gallon. It was about a 1 to 1.25 inch diameter trunk. It's well above 6 inches now.
That's amazing.
So to be sure, it is a fast-growing cultivar of maple tree, but I was looking to do something that would, in my lifetime, give me a shot. If I had put a sugar maple back in there, it wouldn't even be 2 inches by now.
I have one in my yard as well, and they were glorious this year. I think probably the best color that it's been in at least a decade that I can recall. Now, it doesn't put the surface roots out either. I mean, not nearly as bad.
Well, I mean, you're ultimately, as they age, that's just going to happen. That's,
Okay.
And there's ways to deal with that. But typically, for most people, it's not such a serious problem. You can even look at this oak tree in behind. You see how that the ground has heaved up out of the ground, and that tree was not that way originally. So that's just the influence of it pulling the soil up with it as the root system begins to expand. This is, of course, a much larger red oak that's in behind there. So what's all this about? Well, what it means is that if you're a Bates Rewards member, we're extending to you 10% off on all trees. Now, there is a little asterisk out there. The Japanese maples are the exclusion to this, but everything else whether it's an autumn blaze maple or any other shade, fruiting, or ornamental tree. What we have in inventory is all available at 10% off. So it's a great time to, the old saying is the best time to plant a shade tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So it's a really good day to get out and get that done. And this is, I think, a really good example of what getting it done and getting past the part of going, well, we lost that tree, we're never going to have one. Well, in 2 or 3 more years, and this is such a showstopper as far as the color now, we already don't miss that other tree, and we've got something that's going to give us a suitable replacement in a relatively short period of time. And trees, in case you haven't noticed, there's a whole bunch of tree advocacy groups here in Middle Tennessee. Why we have so many is probably another question, but I don't know why we don't just have one, because they're all about the same thing. But anyway, that's another issue.
They're not like Asian beetles, are they? They just keep coming and coming and coming.
I don't know.
Well, but
they don't stink, I don't think.
So
no, they don't stink at all.
Through the end of business on Thursday, if you're a Bates Rewards member, you can get 10% off your entire tree selections, excluding Japanese maples, and that's for in-store purchases only. That's not including our online store. So come check us out. Come see our professionals. Bring photographs. You'll almost certainly have places in your yard to add some quality trees, and we've got a tremendous selection of not just the things that you would normally think about, but probably a whole lot of other things. We've had some black gums this fall. I don't know if we've got any right now or not, but I think they've been some of the most spectacular trees that we've seen. You need to check those out and get us some diversification in the tree selection in your landscape. So come out and see us at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. We're open Monday through Saturday from 9 until 4, noon to 4 on Sundays, and we're going to help you get success and get the right plant in the right place the first time. Of course, we are proudly recommend the use of Earth Mix garden products. And if you're using Earth Mix landscape when you plant, your chances of success really approach 100%.
Yes.
We have few losses as a result of people who are planted and have used that. So we strongly recommend that. Come out and see us. Come see Austin or Adam. And speaking of Adam, thank you, Adam Chapman, for being in here last week and
all day,
capably filling in. So, and we appreciate that. And the whole crew out here, Shannon, Ben, everyone. The other thing, out in the greenhouse area where the perennials are, where Joy and Melissa and the other ladies are, we still have some pansies on hand. So, but they are dwindling. So if you haven't gotten those in the ground yet, you need to get on with it. So come out and see us, Bates Nursery and Garden Center. We've been beautifying Nashville since 1932, and the last time I checked, that means next year is our 90th year. So we really appreciative of that opportunity to be a part of the Nashville community.
As the last part of his question, and it really plays into time with the tree sale that's going on. Is this a good time of the year to plant a tree?
It is the best time of year to plant. Now, and also, I want to hear your thoughts on this. Also, we typically sell almost exclusively container-grown trees. And container-grown tree, when you buy it in the container, compared to a similar balled and burlap tree, it will be a little bit smaller traditionally when you plant it. However, and my tree that I just showed on the screen there is a really prime example of, you go 2 years down the line, though, and it passes the balled and burlap tree simply because it has not had to deal with transplant shock. And so when you plant a tree that's a container-grown tree and you do it properly, it's really going to be a growing machine.
Right? Yeah. You have just a lot more root mass, it seems, in a pot like that. It's been grown there for a long time, so you got tons of feeder roots and thick roots, all the roots you want. And they're just easier to deal with. A big balled and burlap tree is, for a homeowner, is really hard to get to the hole and get it planted straight. And once you drop it in, you're almost you're kind of
you ever tried to when you try to roll a diamond shaped ball, it doesn't go in a straight line. You have to start off that direction to wind up over there.
Exactly.
And you don't get to dry fit the hole. I mean, again,
you need to measure well. Now,
Yes.
the one thing that if you dig it too deep and you get a big tree like that in there, you can elevate it without taking it out of the hole by putting soil in around it and having some help to lean it. It'll come back up out of the ground, but
Then you got to get it back plumb again, and then
there's all of that. But if you do a little measuring, and it doesn't have to be, you can just take the shovel handle and measure the depth of the root ball, stick it down in the ground, and go, okay, that's pretty close.
Pretty good.
It doesn't require that precise of measurement, but a container grown tree will outperform a field grown tree. It doesn't mean that field grown trees are not viable selections. They are, but we really prefer to use the container trees, and it really the growth you see coming off of them is phenomenal comparatively.
Well, and the variety at an independent store is going to be so much more. So I mean, in Metropolis, Illinois, anybody know any independent garden centers up in that particular area?
I can honestly, I've never been to Metropolis.
Oh, you really?
No.
You're more of a Gotham City kind of guy?
Well, a little bit.
Okay. Star City?
Maybe, perhaps. So,
Okay.
I'm sure there are those around. So you need to check that out. But yeah, it sounds like he has a target-rich environment. If he only has one tree in his yard, good chance that
good old cornfield out there somebody had is what he grew it up in. Now, Jonathan, listen to me. If you got any money left over after the closing on Monday, go ahead and get your trees and get them in. I would say that would be a really good thing.
The big thing they have going for them is youth.
Yes,
they are young people, and so they have
prolific breeders too. I mean,
apparently.
Okay.
All right, 615-499-6690. Cary, what else you got question-wise for?
All right. Let's see. Let me pull up my phone. Okay. So Sunrise Faith asks, tall evergreen privacy screen, part sun that doesn't get too wide.
Okay.
Part sun that doesn't get... Talk about it, Austin.
All right. Part sun. I'd like to know what, if it's morning sun or afternoon sun.
Is it the front of the sun or the back of the sun?
Yeah, exactly.
Which part is it?
I don't know how wide you want something to get, but our one of our best-selling screens is our Green Giant Arborvitae. That only gets about 8 feet wide, which is really not all that wide for a tree. If you want to stay skinnier than that, then we can explore other options. But that's by far our best-selling screening plant because it grows really well here without much disease issues. You do have to keep an eye out for bagworms. That's pretty much every conifer, though.
Spider mites.
Yeah, spider mites as well. Mm-hmm. Keep an eye on that. But for the most part, that's going to be a good plant for you. Like I said, plant them 6 to 8 feet apart. They'll make a nice green screen working up to, roughly 30 feet tall eventually. So.
Yeah, and the emerald arborvitae, particularly if you live in a more urban setting or more commonly used simply because of the smaller lot sizes, but they only get about 4 feet wide, mm-hmm. So you're able to keep them fairly narrow. What you don't get with those is that much height. They're going to get maybe 14 feet. That's about it. So as long as you don't have requirements bigger than that, you're probably okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you want something a little taller but still really skinny, we sell a plant called Taylor Juniper, which junipers are well native here, so they grow well. They're very drought tolerant. They're fine with poor soil. They don't need a lot of extra attention, so they can work up into that 30, 35 feet tall range, but they stay thin, like very pencil thin.
And they really need highlight. They're not shade tolerant at all.
No.
And we have an excellent webinar on this subject, do we not? That was done a few weeks back on living screens.
Yes, we do. We have living fences.
Living fences is the
more vine focused, but it does include also recommendations for arborvitae as well, where in lieu of a fence you could grow some plants. We also have an older video called Green Screens, and that's a webinar that Austin taught on evergreen screening plants at any size.
And then one of the looks that I like from an aesthetic standpoint is the use of sections of actual constructed fencing with plantings in between those sections. That's a really good look, and it still gives you the best of both worlds. So
we touched on that a little bit last week as well, where you talk about vines and all kinds of different types of things that can be incorporated into a fence structure. And it really, really, really gives a visual interest. I love it too as well.
Yeah, and then framing in a section of fence posts with vines all on it, framing that in with 2 nice tall evergreens or something just really creates a nice little scene as well. So don't forget to do that.
And Tyler has the fly swatter out. You just heard one give up the ghost.
He got away.
He got away. Oh,
You'll get it later.
Yeah. Intermittent fly killing. That's what I'm doing over here.
Well, you know what happens? We bring all these plants in, and from outside, and the flies are either very sleepy or they're in torpor or whatever happens to them when it's cold. And you bring them in here in the warmth and turn on the lights in the heat, and they say, "Hey, it must be spring again."
There's Dave and Josh. We're going to have a party now.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely. 615-499-6690. Now, were there any other questions we had out there or no?
Yes, we do have one more, but I have a question.
Okay.
So I've dealt a lot with spider mites on houseplants, and I know how to treat it there, but how would you treat them outside? I've never dealt with that before.
Well,
You spoke on it a little bit in your answer just now.
my first, mode of action is to use water and a high spray, just a very high velocity spray of water all over the spider mites. That's my first thing before chemical.
And I'll add this caveat before you go further with it, is that there's a good reason why that you don't see spider mite problems in nurseries that have overhead irrigation systems, and it's for that reason. Spider mites like it hot and dry, and if you have a moist environment where they're getting overhead water daily, they do not like that. So
yeah, we have never seen spider mites here on our lot outside where we overhead irrigate, like you just said. Now we do see it in the greenhouse area and places where we hand water, and like you said, mainly when it's extremely hot and extremely dry. That's typically when they're going to want to come out. A small spider mite infestation can become a very large one very quickly. That they reproduce very fast. So when you see it, typically they're damaged. You're going to see damage from spider mites before you're going to see any spider mite. They're very small.
What does it look like, Austin?
It looks like a tiny little seed tick.
An
almost.
evil little thing.
No, the damage itself.
The damage comes across a little bit different with different plants, but for the most part, it's like this whitish cast over top. If it's a broadleaf plant, it'll be this very white, almost. We use the term stippling, so it's like these tiny little white specks that ends up making this whole white appearance over.
now the other way to diagnose before there is a visual web problem on conifers is to take a sheet of white paper and stick it into the edge of the foliage and simply smack it above it with your hand and then pull it back in, and you'll see these little periods. They're about the size of maybe a number 10 font period on, and they'll be moving around, and so because you can't see them otherwise.
No, they're really hard to see.
You got to have a high contrast background to be able to see them. That way you know that you can get out there and then consider doing some kind of a spraying. And if you catch them early, you don't have to use a chemical toxic thing. You can use something like insecticidal soap even and get decent results, or certainly a superfine sun spray oil in the summertime.
And there's a number of insects that using soaps and oils is great if you can, but there's some insects that you just cannot kill that way. They're too prolific. Spider mite's not one of those. From the literature I've read, for the most part, is that oils and soaps work just as good as almost any other chemical spray when it comes to spider mites. So certainly be organic in that way, and you can take get rid of that problem.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for that answer.
You're welcome.
So it's pretty much the same as houseplants, but
Pretty much.
just haven't dealt with it outside before. All right, so we have one final question.
Okay.
More of a request. Sorry, I haven't had a lot of coffee this morning. I was out when I got
A recrust.
a recrust. That's right. Can you talk about some good winter garden prep projects? I know
Oh,
there's
man.
a lot out there.
If only there was a webinar on winter garden prep.
That
What?
would be perfect.
Hey, where would they find that, Austin? Or I mean, Tyler. I'm sorry.
I don't know, Austin. Go.
Austin doesn't know. It would be Tyler who would know the answer.
You know, you can actually find that at batesnursery.com.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Who knew that?
You just fire up the old website, batesnursery.com.
Is that
and
a 2-cycle website? You have to put gas and oil mix
Four-stroke.
and
You don't
Four-stroke.
actually. They make them where you don't have to prime them anymore.
Oh,
yeah,
sweet.
Yeah, it's just nice, smooth.
Point and click, huh?
Enter button press, and then the website pops up, and you're running. And you hit the blogs tab, which is up at the top, and then down at the bottom of the menu there, it says Bates Botanical Boot Camp Webinar Archive. And there you can find a bunch of other topics on all kinds of stuff, but winter garden prep is in there.
We counted how many we did, and it was about 70.
Yes,
that we have archived
70
right now.
So
webinars.
well, there it is. I've got it up on the screen
At
right
the,
there.
at the
can
blogs
just
tab at the
click
top.
there.
Yeah, you could do that too.
You can do it that way, and then there's the most recent one. There was the one that Adam did about the Dungeon and Dragons fantasy plans.
Yep.
So there's that one there, and then you also have a link at the bottom if you can read small print, it'll take you down there. But anyway, there's
Y'all should always read all the small print.
all the fine print. There's a lot of details in there. So anyway,
Just agree to it and just move on. Click.
yeah. So check out all that we've got. It's actually quite a lot, and we're just continuing to work at it. And the great thing about it is since we've been doing it for basically a year and a half now, we've covered a more than a full season of all aspects of. So there's a lot of content there, and I'm not talking. Much of the content you see are maybe 3 to 5 minutes. These are pretty much long form, where they can go 30 to 40 minutes or more, and talk in depth about things that you may not have a full understanding of. So certainly,
We had an hour and a half long one with Austin once about roses. So
Yeah, I think Austin's the record holder for the longest so far.
Yeah, I got a little
You had a lot to
carried
say.
away.
Now I'm just gonna say, since I happen to teach the winter garden prep webinar, that there's a lot of things that you can do going into this season. One thing you don't want to do right now, though, is prune. You're gonna wait until complete dormancy to do any pruning of branches or anything like that, because you're gonna spur new growth right now. So though you may be antsy, hold off for a little bit longer until we're deeper into winter. And another thing you can do is plan for your early spring garden. You can do some projects like building cold frames,
There you go.
getting, I guess, what do you call them? Hot caps or hoop row covers, so you can sow some seeds and germinate them early, and those things that kind of like the cooler temperatures. Now you'll definitely need them for those freezing nights if you're trying to grow like broccoli or kale or anything like that. But you can look at getting your plants going earlier. You can also start seeds indoors. Like tomatoes, you can get those going really, really earlier. But
now, one of the things that, while you're speaking in terms of starting seeds indoors, the biggest issue that people have when they're doing pre-spring seed germination is that they're easy to germinate. The difficulty is you've got to have them in cool temperatures, not cold, but cool, and very high light, because what you will see, and probably everyone who has seen sprouted tomato seedlings that go flop, because and they'll get 2 inches long, and mine won't stand up. What's wrong with them? Well, because they're stretching for light that's not there. So if you can keep them in a cool range, maybe only in the upper 40s, but have very high light in a sunny window, or maybe use LED lamps to extend the day length. If you can do those to keep them very short and you'll have very thick stems on them, and then that way when you transplant them, you're going to have something that's going to be a lot easier to work with. When you do them in warm temperatures with an inadequate amount of light, they really flop badly, and it makes them difficult to transplant because you've got this whole long stem to bury down on the ground, and it's not optimal. So,
and just wrapping up that question, this is a good time for planning. Like get your garden plans going, get anything that you want to accomplish for the next year. Start thinking in that direction, and also once everything is dead and dormant, clean it up.
Yeah,
Clean
I was
up.
about to say, being clean is the biggest thing I think for this time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Professor Tyler, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Now, if you could go
Josh, little Josh.
LJ, if you could go to input 2,
David's actually got the magical
do
wand.
You got the clicky today.
What did I do with it?
No, never mind. I lied.
Oh.
I'm
Okay.
a big old liar.
He's got
I knew I walked over there and picked it up.
but
Actually got the magical. Oh, mute. Oh wait, no, I'll mute. Never mind. We're stuck in a time loop.
I didn't do it. This is my planning
It never
for
has.
next year.
But Josh is always connected to it.
I know. Go to input 2. He knew it was going to happen.
No, I did not.
He
No.
went in and got all of his audio full volume.
This is next year's project at the Proving Grounds. That area there. Now, the only start that we've really got is about halfway down that little patch of green there amidst the brown. We're gifted some tuberosas last year, and then I have placed the spider lilies that I've bought from bulb. I've planted those there. Other than that, this is the blank palette that we've got to work with next year.
Now you are talking about on the outside of the
Outside of the fence.
nearest the trees.
Well, the tree line is actually a common area. That's an old alleyway that the city of
There's
town
all
of
kinds of carnal acts go on there. Is it that kind of a common area?
Yes, it is. It's a common area. But the backyard neighbor, or the side yard neighbor in this case, that house has been redone, and it looks like we're going to have some folks that really like to take care of their yard. So I got to get ahead of the curve here.
Oh, you're feeling the peer pressure before the peers.
Maybe we could do it. Now, I've been fighting privet. I've been fighting, they had some vinca in there on the other side. There's been a little bit of everything on the other side of that yard, but I've been literally fighting privet and I'm still fighting it. But at the very end of the way, there is the last real stand of privet that's got to come out. And that's my primary focus today. Since we're having a tree sale, what would be a good tree in that spot, Austin?
What are you trying to achieve here? Do you want to kind of green across the whole fence line?
Not necessarily color. I mean, it could be a combination of anything that goes along with it. Now, you could have, I'm not really looking to screen. I'm just looking for visual interest because our screen porch is on that side of the house.
Okay.
And, but there is there is a bit of a traffic issue, so that's why I want to try to keep it as blocked as possible to keep folks from just walking in and around the yard.
Bless you.
But
Thank you.
at the very end, there's it's a pretty nasty patch of privet that's coming out
Yeah, I see that.
shortly. So
Well, it's a nice little woodland scene is the one I'm looking at, and
Okay.
what that screams to me maybe could be some viburnum. How about we got so many viburnum varieties, and there are so many that are fantastic when they're in bloom. I've got a double file viburnum at the house called Shasta. It's very shade tolerant. I've got mine at the woodline as well. Shade tolerant, sun tolerant, doesn't really matter. Viburnum just tends to live, and they live fast. So dotting maybe 3 across the whole back.
But they don't live hard.
No.
They just live fast.
they like that common area then. Okay, they're going to do okay there.
Yeah, of course. They're like I said, they're very tolerant of almost anything. So that would be a good choice. Oak leaf hydrangea comes to mind.
Okay.
We've got a cool one. What was the name of that one yesterday? We had a customer.
It wasn't snowsicle.
Snowsicle.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that. I was like, I should buy one today.
Here's a bit of a bigger view. So I mean, it's primarily it's going to be that the fence faces to the south, so we're going to get pretty good daylight all the way across. But that gives you a bit.
Yeah, that's the ugly view right there.
Yeah. Okay. But the biggest thing that I've got to deal with as a nearly 60-year-old man is the amount of roots that are in
so
that area. Well, the bad back too. So I mean, let's just go along
Let's
with.
don't go down the ailment trail.
Oh,
please.
my foot hurts too. But you can see that we'd taken care of some of the overlimbing and stuff like that. So it's going to get a lot. It's going to get afternoon sun a bunch in the summertime. But that's a bit bigger view. So ferns are probably out with the amount of light, or viburnums. I like that idea. What about the big tree on the other side? That black gum, would that be a good spot for black gum?
Well, It's
Well,
tight. I mean, black gums get
You
big.
got, you got trees on trees there.
well, we can come out into the yard.
You come out into the yard, certainly.
Yeah.
If you're willing to cross over to the green side of the fence,
Okay.
then yes. But I think that if you plant something deciduous along a deciduous line, it just gets lost.
Something deciduous along a deciduous line.
Yeah,
Okay.
you got a bunch of things there that
You can't decide what it's going to do. Is it?
Now the difference between using a shrubby type of planting like a viburnum in there, even though that most of them are deciduous, there are some semi-broadleaf cultivars, but they really have great contrast. Even when they don't have foliage on, they've got a really wonderful low branching structure that's very thick, adds a lot of interest. If you're into birds or whatever, that gives a lot of nice places for birds to nest and that kind of thing.
You notice Mama's got her butterfly house there. So I mean on
That's
this
what that
end,
is.
yeah, it's a butterfly house that she's got planted.
By the way, speaking of creature houses, we put up Renee and I did, I think it was this spring, it's like a screech owl, or it could perhaps be for perhaps a little larger bird house. And she had a flicker in there yesterday. She got a video of it, so she was really proud to see a flicker who is
Who wants to live in the owl's house?
lives in the little house we put up there. It's on that oak tree that was in the background of the picture I showed earlier.
Now that property line, back onto this, the property line there goes all the way to the street. Yeah, the lot is a really funny trapezoidal shape. So I mean, I've got an additional. It's hilarious.
It's not that funny.
No, it's not that funny. But we can go all the way to the street with some of this stuff because again, it's continually fighting the privet. What I've cleaned out has come back up in some places, so it's going to be the lively lad from now on.
What do you guys think about linebacker distilleum?
It's a good plant.
Ooh, linebackers! I like that.
I mean, they're bigger, they're evergreen, they can take more moisture. And the foliage is interesting. Like the newer foliage is kind of orangey.
And distilleums are still relatively new. I mean, people are not widely known. I mean, within the industry, certainly they are. But it's
Do they have a Keith Bullock?
They're big enough.
They're big. Yeah.
Okay.
They are. There's a whole range.
Bronco
of different-
Nagurski?
There's a whole range of Ray Nitschke was the one I was thinking of. There's a whole range of different growth habits, either from low and spreading to quite upright and vigorous growing. So
And we got some very good looking vintage jade distilleum in that.
Yep.
It's much more shrubby and wide kind of growing. I'll say the only bad thing about the linebacker distilleum is that they kind of look like privet. They almost looked identical. Not identical, but they look very similar.
But they
But
don't
it's
have
bushier.
have the seed issue.
No,
that
not
privet have.
near as aggressive.
Well, and again, the privet when in spring on that one that's still existing.
And Todd,
it
if we
was
could go back
stunning.
to one, please.
Yeah, you can go back to one at this point, but that's going to be a continuing process through the 2022 calendar year. I think we're going on there. So,
Okay, well, let's talk briefly about no matter what you're planting,
Yes.
be it distilleum, be it viburnum, be it a shade tree or ornamental tree in your yard, you're going to get the very best results. And that includes, tropical plants, whatever you're doing. There's an Earth Mix garden product specially designed to optimize the growth you're going to get out of your plants. And it's done so without chemicals. It's 100% organic, sustainably produced right here in Nashville, Tennessee. Earth Mix Garden Products uses the best things that Mother Nature provides. And Supernatural is a compost that where additional amounts of mycorrhiza fungi, both endo and ecto, I might add.
I like that ecto stuff.
Mycorrhiza fungi is important, as is humic acid, and
That's good on a cracker.
What you not really, it's really more for plants.
Oh, okay.
But if you use those in the soil that you mix, you're going to have great success because you're creating a living soil that is going to create a an environment for your plants that's going to give them the best opportunity to be most productive. So that's the Earth Mix approach. And Earth Mix is available only at fine independent garden centers around Middle Tennessee. Go to earthmix.net and click on the Find Earth Mix tab. And once you go there, you'll see there's a whole map that comes up and all these pins, and you'll see they're all over Middle Tennessee, Kentucky, even up into Indiana and Ohio. Check out the location nearest you and make sure that you go in. And if you deal with a garden center that doesn't have it, ask them, hey, I would really appreciate you carrying Earth Mix garden products.
I want my Earth Mix.
Remember,
No,
this
that's
success
MTV.
in gardening begins at the ground level when you use Earth Mix garden products. We
good stuff,
appreciate
folks.
your attention.
Yep, absolutely. Now that is amazing. So, but like I say, I love this. I mean, when we see these things inside the studio, folks, you need to come out to the nursery and see the caller that's out here today. Let's go around and talk about what's going on just inside this small facility.
Well, I tell you, I think Austin can probably better see what's in front of me than I can.
This one.
And he's also got some interesting things back there where on his table as well.
I was going to add, somebody noted the blue flowers that are in Austin's pot. They are pansies, aren't they?
Look
Yeah.
at that.
Yep.
I don't know who did this pot, but they did a really good
They
job.
did do a really good
He
job.
don't
wouldn't
know
be
if-
in this room with us,
I
would he?
don't know if those are crystal bowl, what variety of pansy those are, but those don't have the face on them like you
They
see
don't.
with
It's a clear mix is what I used on this, and I put about how many, Tyler? About 9 tulips, I believe, down in the bottom of this pot.
Yes.
So they are going to be waiting to jump up in the spring.
It's got a nice surprise in the bottom.
Yes, it
like
will.
a Cracker Jack box.
Wow.
And I think
Also-
we need to let Caroline talk about what we got this week, what's in front of her.
Well, for some of the kiddos watching, I'm just going to say the pansies look a little bit really blue, but they're actually more towards the indigo and purple spectrum. So, but I mean, sometimes that's considered a blue, right? Or do you think those are purple?
In the plant world, we're loose with blue. You don't get true blue very often, so if it's on the purple side, but it's a little closer to blue, we'll call it blue.
Is there still any? Have we ever found any blue food, David? No.
grapes,
No.
blueberries.
Blueberries.
That's
Josh.
No, they're not really blue.
Well, I mean,
That's what I was telling you. We're loose with the word blue in the plant world, okay?
okay.
That's George Carlin reference, by the way, folks.
Are we pushing it over to
To
Caroline,
Cary.
yes.
We need to talk
Caroline.
about the holiday selection.
Oh, yes. I did just finish my coffee, so I should be speaking a little more clearly.
It'll kick in a minute.
So we did, yes, here I am, I'm wide awake. This week we did get our first big shipment of holiday houseplants in. So we've talked a lot about outdoor exterior plants, building screens, Josh's weird little alleyway back behind his fence. So let's talk about what you can put inside your house to make it a little bit prettier. Now, we haven't got poinsettias in yet, or poinsettias. They come in next week, I believe, on the 17th or the 18th. So mark your calendars and get excited.
also living Christmas trees, but those are outside.
Also living Christmas. Yeah. Tyler, we're talking
sorry.
about, this is my time to shine.
I'm gonna butt
right?
out.
Yeah, get out of here. Cut that mic off. So we got Cyclamen in. I was really excited about these. I'm going to pull them forward. We got them in these little terracotta pots. So you can just come in,
those
grab
cute.
it. Don't have to worry about picking out a pot, repotting it. It's ready to go. These will do great on like a dining room table if you've got a window where it gets just some indirect light. These don't like full sun, direct light. They do.
Anytime I see something growing in a clay pot, it always makes me think of my grandmother because back in the day,
That's all you had, right?
all that was available. So everything they grew was in clay pots back in the day. So that always makes me think of her. So
I
Nanny.
love terracotta. One thing you do have to watch with these, especially with the cyclamen in them, it's going to draw out the moisture out of the soil quickly, so you're going to have to water more often.
Yep.
And these will kind of let you know, like peace lilies, when they need to be watered. They'll really start drooping, and it's kind of cool to watch within like an hour after you water them. They'll be back up and wide awake like I am now. And then we also got Christmas cactus to my left.
Okay.
This is actually a hanging basket. I took the hanger off. It's in, full bloom right now.
So it's a Thanksgiving cactus.
So it's a Thanksgiving cactus.
Yes.
Most of our Christmas cactus right now are just budding out. This was one of the
Zygo
few.
cactus, if you want to be, more correct about
That's
it.
right. But if you're not ready for it to be in bloom, most of the ones we got in are budding out right now. So it'll be a little while before they open up. And then to its left, we have an Amaryllis. I don't know if Tyler.
I was
The other
looking at the
left.
other Christmas cactus.
Tyler. So this is kind of weird. I've never seen this before. Tyler, I'm going to bring it over to me.
That's okay. I'll follow you over.
So it is encased in wax and it says no water needed. So I wonder how long it's going to last. I might have to buy one to try it out, but it's got a little stand on it, but it doesn't seem like it's going to hold it up once the plant actually starts to grow
I
out.
don't
So you
think
might
so,
have to
yeah.
like put it down into something, but kind of cool concept.
I mean, you could set it in a bowl and anchor it with nice little pebbles or something.
There you
Pebbles.
go. Yes.
At some
Bubble it up.
point, roots are going to emerge.
That's what I was
Yeah,
wondering.
that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking. I mean,
Once you get to that point, it's
Yeah.
Got to put some dirt
It's
around
definitely
it.
not going to last year to year in that.
Hey,
but
it's trendy. Go
maybe
with it.
we should buy one at the nursery and just test it out.
Speaking of
to see.
amaryllis in year to year, my wife is an avid amaryllis grower, and she has in terracotta pots, and she has to take them out and divide them because she has so many multiple stems. I mean, she really gets some monster plants out of that. So, good if you take care of amaryllis, and once they get through their flowering time, you can simply put them in the basement or in the garage area and winter them over till you get back out to the springtime, and they really do amazingly in successive years. So it's not just a Christmas time or a holiday time plant.
Right. We did a webinar last year, Vanessa and I, about caring for holiday houseplants, and one of
So
our
if we
big
have
points
not
was
mentioned, if we
throw
have
them
not,
away.
if we have not mentioned it already, you need to be checking out the Bates Nursery Botanical Boot Camp website
Yep.
at batesnursery.com
Yep.
for a whole range of information.
Oh, wow.
And speaking of information, we just ran out for this.
Well, we just ran out of time. Well, we're not completely out of time. Hey, thanks for everybody for joining us here. And wanted to got another message from another forum producer of the At Home Show. Jim Stevens says it's snowing in Cleveland, folks. So,
wow.
hey, and
Right.
congratulations to Chris Weber, another former producer of the At Home Shows, going to drive time in the afternoon with Brian Wilson. So they're going to move over.
Well deserved.
Very talented young man.
Yes,
hey,
he is.
For everybody here, there's a lot of talent in this room as well. We appreciate you being here every Saturday morning, and we invite you back next Saturday morning because we're going to hit on more of those holiday plants, hopefully. We didn't even get to talk about the Norfolk Island Pine or this pretty gorgeous little it's just so much stuff we got to get to cover.
Little quick fire.
But hey, we'll be here next Saturday from the Green Room Studios at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. See you then.